welcome to my brand new podcast by the title of Lincoln Knows. And I'm really excited to be in this format because I haven't done it in about 10, 12 years. And the last time I podcasted, I only did about 5 episodes and don't even have those. They're floating around somewhere. So I took a little bit about what I learned back then on how to do this in the format that I want to do and merged it with what's happened to my life in the past 10 years. And I want to talk about it. And I am here to learn and grow. That's why I named it Lincoln Knows, KNOWS.com, because at the beginning of each podcast, I want to know a little bit about what we're talking about. But each guest that we have, I want them to share with me their expertise and their knowledge in that subject. And by the time it's over, I'll feel like I know enough to be able to hold a conversation with someone about that topic. And we have all kinds of topics that we're going to talk about, and I'll tell you that in just a minute. But let me tell you a little story about my story and how I got started. So I grew up on a farm in southern Indiana, Jeffersonville to be exact, out on Hamburg Pike. I was born in 1969, right after they landed on the moon. The week Sesame Street came out, actually, and we were a working farm. But that same year, my grandfather and great-grandfather decided to sell their property to a real estate developer who came in and bought the property, invested, got everything laid out, the development. They built about 650 homes were built around our farm and our old farmhouse. So I grew up on the farm and then transitioned to all these houses being built. And then I got in the realty and auction business with my dad and spent about 15 years working for him and did some fun projects. We built a mini warehouse self-storage facility together. We built a mini golf and go-kart track fun park together. That was fun, kinda. It was painful, it was hard, it was a lot of work, a lot of teenage employees, a lot of liability, and it's one of my businesses that didn't make it. And we ended up having to liquidate and sell and work things out with the bank, and all of it was awful. It was just absolutely the worst from a small business owner's perspective. But now 20 years later, I have the rearview mirror and realize that certain things happened the way they did, that some were in my control, that was a mistake, and then some that was way out of my control that I underestimated. And that's part of life and that's part of growing. So we did the fun park and the mini golf, and then Dad and I split off in the early 2000s, and I really pursued a full-time career in real estate sales, regular brokerage sale, investor properties, things like that, residential development, and then the real estate crash of the late 2000s, I guess, 2008 to 2011, it was really tough. So I kind of had to reboot my thought on what created income for my life and my living, and started doing video in 2009 and really discovered YouTube and discovered my passion for video, especially when it comes to highlighting local things. So I started making videos. One of my best friends, Dustin's a video guy. He had a video company and a camera, and we just started shooting content. And we film video not only locally, but all over the country. And I learned so much about the type of video that I wanted to do, the exploration video. Like, my dream job would be to be a correspondent for CBS Sunday Morning, where you report on good things that people are doing or things that you learn, or sharing with people things that are the most simple, basic in our lives, sharing that with as many people as possible so they can have an appreciation for it. I love that. A very dear friend of mine named Mike Schoonover, who I'll have on the show, tells me that he loves that I am a story collector and a story maker and a storyteller, sometimes in all 3 different ways. And that really makes sense because I do make a lot of stories happen when I am on 3 months out of the year, I'm Santa Claus. So I get to make a lot of stories and I collect those stories. And I use those stories and then I tell them and I share with people the stories that I collect, not only at Christmas time, but about a random June meeting with someone in the grocery store and I'm not dressed as Santa and the little 5-year-old kid knows for a fact that I'm Santa Claus. That's a wonderful experience. And that allows me to collect that story and combine it with others and tell more stories. And that's what I really hope to do with this podcast, is tell some stories. So right now, today, what I do for a living, if anybody asks me, one day I help my girlfriend run her restaurant and do deliveries and do whatever she needs. Another day, I'm walking farms with clients with my boots on and measuring property and making sure that it's a good investment for others. One day, I'm working with Erica here in our office doing podcasts and any type of extra media that we need to do. One day, looking at auctions. One day, consulting on property. Heck, this week I delivered 200 king cakes to Lexington, Kentucky for Fat Tuesday. I really like to move food. So when people ask me what I do for a living, I tell them that I'm a real estate broker and auctioneer, and I'm a Santa Claus, and I'm a food mover. I love to move food, whether it's for Dare to Care and charity and taking it to food pantries and shelters all over our community, or making food and delivering it, or serving really wonderful dinners as a sous chef with Rachel in her kitchen. It's my favorite stuff to do. So I want to talk about it, and I want to share the things that I learn and discover. Like professionally, I have a list. Clark County history, how that's impacted our businesses in our communities, and our communities in our cities and our towns and our organizations that make things happen on the daily. Tourism for Southern Indiana, of course, Santa Claus. I have several Santa Claus podcast episodes that we're going to work on that I'm excited about. Auctions, auction heritage, the different elements of auctions, of how they have gone from live cry to online auctions to a hybrid of live cry and online. I'm really intrigued by all of that. The realty business, and of course the food business, and every perspective from ownership with restaurant owners and what it's like to be an owner operator of a restaurant. Have chef talk. I really love chef talk, talking about food, but also talking about the good and bad of the food in the restaurant industry and the pluses and the minuses. And now that I spend so much time with Rachel and her amazing restaurant, the Orange Clover, I see a different side of the restaurant business that I had never been exposed to, and that's the operational side. And I see why it is so difficult. It's tough, but I've learned a lot, and I want to share that knowledge with some that want to also be like me and learn more. AI, I'm very interested in AI and robotics, and we'll save that for people way smarter than me. I won't be doing anything but asking very pre-planned questions, because that stuff's on a whole higher level than I think I am intellectually, but I really am intrigued by it. So I'm working real hard to get some people in here to talk to us about AI and robotics. And I don't know if you've heard, but Meta, Facebook parent company, just announced an $800 million investment in our community about 3 miles from where my office is. And I think that says a lot for our community stepping up and really appealing to technology and next day thinking. You know, they're going to build this huge data center on a piece of property that used to be the Indiana Army ammunition plant, where they made black powder and bombs and guns and ammunition, ammunition. Before that, it was farms, which is where my family was from. They were forced out in 1941 because the ammunition plant came in. They built a lot of ammunition on the plant. So it's interesting to now, we spent the last 80 years, they spent the last 80 years building ammunition for bombs, right? And now, and guns and bullets. Now they're building their infrastructure and their investment to manage data. So we went from farming to bombs to data. And maybe someday we'll get back to farming one way or another, or maybe the data is the farming element of that. And I think that's pretty cool. I hope I can get lucky enough to have somebody from Meta come in and talk to us and share with us their excitement of why they're coming to Jeffersonville, Indiana. I'll keep you posted on that. I have some personal things that we're going to be talking about and learning, hopefully a lot. I'm fascinated with bees. I love honeybee culture and honeybee, everything about it. I grew up on a farm. We had honeybees when I was a kid, and I have some real fond memories, some not so fond memories of getting stung quite a bit. But I love how bees are so intricate, my little bee box, and how they work in their culture and work together. I really love that. And I've written a piece called Profits versus Profits. And it's the profits that we make as a small business community and how that can relate to the bee box. I'll post that on one of our podcast episodes when we talk about bees. Some other things personally that are really interesting to me that I want to follow and I want to learn more. One of them is parental alienation. I've got a couple different guests that are going to be on that with me, my daughter being one of them. We're going to talk about our case of parental alienation and how it impacted our lives, both in the short run and then the long term. And I hope to have an attorney on here to talk about the damages that parental alienation can do to people and how it's so unhealthy for everybody. So I'm real excited about that. I'm also going to talk about the legalization of cannabis in our country, not only the fact that we don't have it in the state of Indiana and every state around us does, but how this will impact our community, not only from a federal standpoint, but also from a local standpoint. I'm intrigued by that. I'm following that very closely. Local politics are always interesting. There's always plenty to talk about, but I am really only here to learn about new things. So if I have a politician on here, chances are it's not going to be somebody that's been in office 3, 4, 5 times locally. We're just not going to do it. I want to talk to the new people. I want to talk to the young people, the new people who have a new energized perspective on making our local community work, and I want to find out what makes them tick, and hopefully I can get a few of them on here. And as I close up talking about the topics of what we're going to share, probably the one that's the most important to me personally is how we have so much food insecurity in our communities, especially with our seniors and our real little ones, and poverty and how that impacts their lives, and how I think we can all do better and feed those people. It's mind-boggling to me that we have, I don't know, over 500 billionaires in the United States of America, and we have people starving. And I'm not talking about pockets of starving people way over here. I'm talking about people next door to you are food insecure. So we're going to try to dissect that and break that down to all of the areas that I think need attention on a local basis and see what we can do to kind of help make a change in that, because I am a person that is a food mover, whether it is food for profit or whether it is food to feed people that probably aren't going to eat that day. And I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about that. So those are just some of the topics I have. That's probably half of them that I would like to do this year. We're going to try to film these a couple at a time. Please bear with us. We are brand new, and I say we, I'm not taking credit for this. I've got Erica who's been with me since 2016, and she's going to kind of help me, you know, overhaul and learn how the technical side of podcasting works while I get to sit here and ramble and ask all kinds of questions. So I appreciate Erica being on this journey with me. I'm excited about bringing more ideas, some progressive thought and ideas to our community. And if my expectations on this podcast are 100% for someone at CBS Sunday Morning to see it and say, we got to do a segment with Lincoln. But my second and the rest of my intentions with this podcast is to learn and to meet people that can help explain things a little bit better than I can, and share all of that with the community that I live in and I've always lived in and will probably always live in and love so very much. So I'm going to sign off for today. We'll have more episodes coming in the next couple weeks, and I appreciate you listening and watching our first podcast.